distract attention from the state of the economy, which is currently withering under this floundering Labour government?
Minister.
Well, the brass neck. The last government crashed the economy, sending mortgages through the roof, and called an early election to avoid having to make difficult decisions. And my right honourable friend agree that the transport policy should be enabling growth as a priority in this country so that we can bring about change that the British people voted for. 14 years, a government that had become so sclerotic in aviation and maritime, as part of my brief, that no decisions were brought forward on decarbonising the maritime sector, decarbonising the aviation sector, and making the difficult decisions that this country needs. There is no, as the honourable member does say rightly, there is no development consent order before us at the moment, and that's a matter for Heathrow or a related party to bring forward.
MacDonald.
For me and you, Mr. Speaker, there's more than an element of déjà vu on this debate, isn't there? Although the Minister has said that what we've heard is speculative, I have to say the Chancellor's statements seem to be more authoritative than that. And could I ask, therefore, has the Department provided her with an assessment, for example, of where the 8,000 to 10,000 people in my constituency who will have their homes demolished or rendered unlivable will live if the Heathrow expansion goes ahead? Has he also mapped out for the Chancellor the flight paths of the additional 250,000 planes flying over the homes of people in those marginal seats of Uxbridge and Watford and Harrow and elsewhere? And also, has he advised the Chancellor on some of the figures that have been bandied about the economic benefits, which seems to derive from the Airport Commission's figures that are out of date, but his own department rubbished very thoroughly only in recent years?
Minister.
Well, I say to the honourable member, he is a doughty campaigner for his constituents, but there is no DCO at the moment, so we don't know the impact. That will be a matter for Heathrow or a third party to bring forward. I would like to hear a more full-throated support for our airspace modernisation plan, which will improve resilience and capacity and flexibility when it comes to aircraft noise over affected communities. And when it comes to growth, my own constituency, Mr. Speaker, as you well know, has seen £2 billion worth of the Manchester Mix Scheme at Manchester Airport, the development of the Hook Group, the development of the most advanced Amazon's fulfilment centre on the planet. We know that aviation brings growth and jobs, and we know there's a trade-off to be had, and we will have those conversations if a development consent order is brought before us.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Paul Collar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister gave an admirably Delphic but still disappointing answer. Whilst we must grow the economy, we must not do so at the expense of the environment. Expanding Heathrow, Gatwick and Luton airports will drive, fly even a coach and horses through our climate commitments, adding 92 million tonnes of carbon dioxide to our carbon footprint by 2050. And do not just take my word for it. The Mayor of London and his previous Deputy Mayor for Transport, the Environment Secretary, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury and the Prime Minister have all previously been opposed, as is the Energy and Net Zero Secretary. So can I ask the Minister 3 questions? 1, why has his boss, the former London Deputy Mayor for Transport, now changed her mind? 2, how can the government reconcile this massive growth in carbon emissions with our climate commitments? And 3, why, if the government is looking to grow our economy, isn't the government re-engaging meaningfully with Europe by negotiating a customs union?
Minister.
Oh, so that last one floored me ever so slightly. Delphic, he says, ambiguous and obscure, slightly like Liberal Democrat policies when it comes to aviation. one foot in, 1 foot out, sort of shake it all about, saying one thing to one community under a flight path, saying another thing about jobs to another community on the flight path. Whatever I say will end up on the focus one thing, but you can't have it both ways. You can't support growth, you can't support jobs, you can't support airspace modernisation, you can't support sustainable aviation fuels, and then go to your constituents and say, look what this terrible government is doing. We have a firm plan for aviation in this country, and we're going to carry it out.
Andy Slaughter.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would the Minister agree that plans for the third runway have gone cold over the past decade since the airport commission? As he says, there isn't even an application for a development consent order. Would he agree with me that there's no chance of there being spades in the ground in this Parliament? And if there were, that's when the problems really start.
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, but for too long, on too many issues, this nation has just not made the tough decisions. When it's come to airport expansion, when it's come to a world-class aviation sector admired across the world, and when it comes to actually decarbonising our sector as well, we are making huge progress, more in the first 6 months than the last 14 years of the government opposite. So we will continue on our mission of renewing the National Airport Strategy, looking at development consent orders as they are currently live. That's a quasi-judicial matter, and I can't comment on Luton and Gatwick as members know, and we will wait to see if Heathrow do bring a development consent order forward, or one of their related parties.
Sir Roger Gale.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Manston Airport in Kent, in my constituency, has been fallow and the subject of legal action for far too long, but that's happily now behind us. We hope and expect that within the next few weeks there will be announcements concerning the funding that will lead to the development of a state-of-the-art net zero carbon airport in Kent. Manston at the moment doesn't appear to feature in the government's plans. So can the Secretary of State assure me that his eye is on that ball and that that will become part of the growth programme?
Minister.
Well, can I thank the honourable member for his question? I spoke to him about Manston both in opposition and in government as well. So we again wait to see what will be brought forward there, but it could be an exciting opportunity, particularly for cargo, where we could have zero-emission vessels shipping its content into the port of London in the future. So we will wait and see whether they come with a development consent order, and we will judge it on its merits.
Rupert Huck.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last time that this question of Heathrow was voted on, I'm old enough to have been there, we, in the spirit of Gordon Brown and the tests over the euro, applied our own on capacity, carbon commitments, minimising noise and environmental impact and benefiting the whole of the UK. Can the Minister tell me whether these still apply? Very sensible tests. And can he add another one about costs to the public purse and deliverability for my constituents who will be the most affected and want a better, not a bigger Heathrow?
Well, I thank the honourable member for the question. I have to re-emphasise there is no development consent order for Heathrow at the moment, but we know that for all aviation and for all airports, surface access is absolutely essential. The public transport penetration within an hour is key to the markets that airports can actually get across the planet and support their growth. We know that we have a world-class transport system here in the south east, but as a part of any development consent order, Heathrow or its related parties will have to prove about how we can get new people to that site going forward in the future.
Munira Wilson.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. If, as we expect, the Chancellor announces her support tomorrow for a third runway at Heathrow, not only is this a massive U-turn on the Prime Minister's previous position, it is patently clear that a third runway will fail all of Labour's 4 tests on growth across our regions, on climate, on air and noise pollution. The economic and environmental cases are in tatters, and no airlines want to foot the bill for a third runway. So will the Minister concede that any announcement by the Chancellor is simply virtue signalling for a Chancellor in search of growth where she's not going to achieve it and damage our environment and our communities at the same time?
Minister.
Well, firstly, I support the Chancellor's pursuit of growth. Too long we have been stagnant, and we know that this is an area that can provide growth. I've seen it in my own constituencies, I pointed out. But where was the honourable member when we talked about sustainable aviation fuels? Where was the honourable member when we committed £63 million to the Advanced Fuel Fund to help the SAF industry grow in this country? And we've announced £1 billion to the Aeronautical Technical Institute to look at zero-emission flight. Wouldn't it be great one day in the future a minister can stand here and say that all internal UK flights will be zero-emission? I want to leave whoever my successor is the opportunity to hopefully say that within the next decade.
Deirdre Costigan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many of my constituents in Ealing Southall work at Heathrow or in its supply chain and will welcome the good quality, well-paid jobs airport expansion will bring. However, I have other constituents who worry about the environmental impact of any expansion. In taking any decision on this matter, will the Minister ensure he balances the need for growth and for good quality local jobs against the need to minimise both air pollution and noise pollution?
Madam Deputy Speaker, what a terrific question. There is a trade-off always between hard... Well, It absolutely hits the mark that there's a trade-off between noise, carbon and growing our economy for our people. Airports do create well-paid, high-paid, trade-unionised jobs, not just with the aircraft that come in and out, but the ground handling services that come with them as well. And we know that aviation communities are much better off because of the jobs that are created with them. And we have to balance all that trade-off in the years ahead as we make the tough decisions we need to grow our economy.
David Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would remind the Minister that sustainable aviation fuel is not an answer to air quality, which is the main reason why attempted expansion at Heathrow has failed in the past. It's also the reason for the Chancellor's trenchant opposition to the expansion of Leeds Bradford Airport, which affects her constituency. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, having been around since the days of the Terminal 5 planning inquiry, it's very clear that the business case for Heathrow expansion rests on imposing very significant costs on taxpayers through expecting the taxpayer to foot the cost of the impact on the M4, the M25, the loss of an incinerator that provides waste to energy for many local authorities. So can the Minister assure the House that any DCO, when it comes forward for Heathrow, will be subject to no less rigour and no less consultation than those that have been brought forward in the past?
Well, I can assure the honourable gentleman on that. I would just say, in addition to SAF, which was stuck in the muck under the last Labour government, waiting for years for announcements, that we've done more in 6 months than 14 years under the last administration. And we are investing in cleaning up current aviation fuel through our contrail technology and funding of that as well, so that the air people breathe is always as clean as we possibly can make it.
Danny Beales.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In the spirit of cross-party collaboration, I'd like to praise the shadow spokesperson for expertly outlining some of the logistical challenges of Heathrow expansion. I must say, however, it's a surprise and a shame that the party opposite didn't answer those questions before voting for expansion in 2018 when in government. But moving forward to solve and address these very serious issues, does the Minister agree with me that any future application for Heathrow expansion, which we don't yet have, must address those key questions, must look at those logistical challenges and address the very real issue of how expansion is compatible with our climate commitments and with local concerns over air quality, pollution, noise and congestion?
Minister.
The honourable member is exactly right. So our 4 tests remain. They have to be passed. But we are, again, speculating that a development consent order will come before us. But I am sure, as a doughty campaigner for his constituents, he will make his voice heard.
Sarah Olney.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker.
The economic benefits of the expansion of London airports remain unproven. In regards to Heathrow, the Department for Transport's updated appraisal report show that the net present value of a third runway ranges from just £3.3 billion to minus £2.2 billion, while Heathrow's own finances are of severe concern due to the significant debt that they've incurred. So can the Minister tell me what new economic analysis has the government considered that now makes a third runway at Heathrow viable when considered alongside its commitments on climate, noise and air quality?
Minister.
Well, I say to the honourable member what I said earlier, that capacity in London is at 76% on average, 95% at Gatwick and Heathrow, and what is the Liberal Democrat answer to that? Do we not want people to fly across the world, bang the drum for British business? Do we not want them to visit their friends and their family? Are they for constraining people flying? I think there's a lot of questions, but no answers for members on those benches opposite.
Clive Efford.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I voted against the framework for the Heathrow Airport in 2018, and I did so because it didn't satisfy me that the legislation before us was going to deal with air quality, noise, climate change and surface access issues. Does my honourable friend agree with me that if we're going to go ahead with a third runway at Heathrow, we've got to satisfy ourselves in this House that those issues have been addressed and they cannot be set aside by the developers once they've got permission to go ahead?
The honourable gentleman is exactly right. Those tests do have to be met, and they have to be met through the development consent order. Just for the record, I voted for the framework in 2018 because I did at the time think it passed those tests.
Sir Alex Shelbrooke.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As I know will be true for his fellow Minister, the Honourable Member for Wakefield and Rothwell, many of my constituents in Wetherby and Easingwold use Leeds Bradford Airport. And for years, I've wanted to see an expansion of Heathrow so that morning flights can come down to Heathrow Airport, allowing transatlantic flights to be boarded in Yorkshire. So can I urge the Minister that when considering the expansion of Heathrow, he always gives firm attention to the regional airports, especially Leeds Bradford Airport in Yorkshire, that would allow the economy to grow significantly if people could check in Leeds and get off in New York?
I can't agree more with the honourable member, and it pains me to say it. We have 5 great northern runways stretching from John Lennon, Manchester, Leeds, Bradford and Newcastle, and we should be focusing on regional connectivity in particular. I would say on Leeds Bradford, my recollection is because of the lack of decision making by the last government, confidence was lost there around its development. Let's see if we can get a framework where we can improve the connectivity for the people of Leeds, Bradford and my honourable friend's constituency of Wakefield.
Dr Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I came to London yesterday by rail as usual, and I have to say that both Lumo and LNER are doing a fantastic job getting people out of planes between Edinburgh and London and into trains. And I always like to talk about trains, but I am concerned, Madam Deputy Speaker, that any increase in air capacity is going to take people out of the train and help them make less sustainable transport options. So can the Minister commit to speaking with the Minister of Rail to understand any impacts on that service regarding airport expansion? Thank you.
Well, I think the honourable member is exactly right. We have to join up the modes of transport. We've had a broken transport system for 14 years with complete underinvestment, and whether it's rail connectivity to Glasgow, what will happen with the development consent order in terms of Heathrow coming forward, or just getting northern trains working across the north of England to link up Leeds, Bradford, Liverpool and Manchester and Newcastle will be a key start about improving jobs and growth at those airports.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In order to meet the problems of increasing demands for flights, what is the government doing to improve rail connections with Western Europe, including direct trains to Germany as well as Holland?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I think fixing the problems of Eurostar, we're seeing other developers coming into that market, and we're seeing the European Union colleagues actually doing overnight long-distance trains, which is reducing the need for aviation across the continent and reducing carbon. We should be ambitious as a country that we can tap into that network, and he's right in this matter.
Chian Wara.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And Newcastle International Airport tell me that Heathrow expansion will mean increased access to global businesses, global markets for North East businesses, new destinations for North East tourists, and easier access to our brilliant North East universities for students from around the world. So more broadly, would the Minister agree with me that given that air travel's 5% of emissions is dwarfed by road travel, that the important work that his